Welcome to another edition of Swim Easy Speed. Today we're going to continue with doing the analysis of some pros that have been training here in the Woodlands. A good chunk of them are training for Kona. The one today was training for 70.3 Worlds and raced at the PTO US Open this past weekend. So this first one is India Lee, and what we'll do is we'll just kind of let the video play, and you guys can watch it, all the different angles that we've got of her stroke, and then we will rewind it and go from there. Okay, so now we're gonna rewind it and just go back to the beginning and start to talk about it. Okay, so the first thing we see is, what we see with most people, the kind of the first time they're in an endless pool. That angle's a little bit off, and I've seen her swim in the pool. We did. She dropped in on a couple workouts with the team, and yeah, she doesn't look kind of that low in the water when she's swimming with the team or when she's swimming in a pool. So some of that is, as we've talked about many times before, is the current kind of running over the top a little bit and then pressing the back end down. But it always indicates kind of, we could get a little bit more engagement from the core and or strengthen the core's connection to the lower part of our body or the lower part of our body to the core. And she actually had to, she posted up on Instagram that she had to drop out of the US Open, partway into the bike because her lower back was starting to seize up in the swim and the bike at the start of the bike. So that's something that she's going to go back and address when she gets back home. And just talking to her briefly, my kind of advice was that one of the ways to handle that, swimmers typically have horrible lower backs too. Is the best way to address it is just to get in the weight room. You just got to build up kind of core strength and then that coordinated, connected core strength to the rest of the body, and even build up kind of musculature in the lower back. So, I gave her a couple ideas on some things to do. So, but yeah, you can see, her head and shoulders are a little bit higher than her feet and her hips. So here was the one thing that I wanted to zoom up on. So you can see with this entry on, she's right-handed. She's coming in. It's probably a little bit of a steep angle kind of with the hand on the entry. So what I mean by that is it's really, really thumb down here. So that's typically indicative of, not always, but sometimes indicative of you're just not finishing hard enough for the left isn't pulling as hard as the right in the water, or if it's the opposite, the right isn't pulling as hard as the left. But typically when you're right-handed, you're gonna forget the left. Your attention and focus isn't gonna be there, and so that would probably be a good place to start, because then there's usually other issues that come along with it. So, and we'll kind of take a look at that when we go through here. So here you can see, on the left side, she does a pretty good job right there, keeping that elbow high. So it's a really good angle right there. The elbow stays up, and she starts pulling herself forward pretty quick. On the right side, and this is what you'd kind of expect if the left was not getting as much propulsion. She comes in, and that's kind of the starting position. So the elbow's dropped. Press, 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 press. Don't really start pulling yourself forward till there. And so that would, if we, again, think of ourselves as that teeter-totter on the water, if we're pressing down in the front, so that's going to press the head and shoulders up, and then the feet are going to drop down. So, and then here you can see, here's kind of the angle in the water. And then that gap right in there, that's 5, 10 seconds, 100. For her. Okay, so here's one of the things that we kind of dialed in on. So you can see it's pretty good. She's going a little bit wide on the left, but it's still, the majority of it's really going straight. And then on the right, she's just coming inside just a little bit. Well, maybe more than a little bit. So, we've got, it's going kind of that direction. So some of it's going there. And what you'll see is right there is where that kind of, the body's trying to kind of compensate for that instability that's going into the stroke. So, you get that scissor kick, the legs kind of splay apart like that. And that's just to stabilize the body because the core is kind of getting overwhelmed with the instability that's getting put into the stroke. And so that's kind of the next way to compensate. But all you're doing is really increasing drag. So that was kind of one of the first things that we thought about. Then here, and you didn't really see this until we got to this underwater shot, and that's why these underwater shots are kind of really valuable. So you can see on the right, she comes in, and it's a really solid catch. She gets a good catch on the water. All that looks solid. She's pulling through. Got a nice bent elbow there. So if we look at this angle right here, it might be a little bit wide, but it's, if midline is here, she could be a little bit closer, but it's better than a lot of people. But you can see here on this left, watch kind of this movement over that back and forth kind of movement with the hand. And I'm going to slow it down just a little bit so you might be able to see it better. Boom, boom, boom. So it doesn't look like there's a great catch and just a lot of instability, almost like looking for the catch. But she told me that she can feel a little bit of instability in that shoulder. So that's part of the reason why she might not be pulling as hard on the left as she does on the right. And then that's actually a pretty good angle right there. Yeah, right at, you're right at about 100 degrees. So that looks good. But yeah, I gave her some ideas about, again, getting in the weight room, and, if you strengthen everything around that joint, it's going to create a little bit more stability and give you a little bit more, be able to generate a little bit more power. Okay, so here was the first thing that we did. Look, it's always good to kind of make sure that we're driving the whole stroke perfectly forward. So what we did was we just kind of figured out where in the pipe that, and you can see kind of she's coming inside right there a little bit. We went through a couple rounds of this where we'd video, then show her the video. She was looking at the mirror to really get a good idea of where her hand was entering. And you can see the feet already start to get a little bit better. And then the whole body starts to look, very simple and compact. Okay, so then the next thing that we worked on was really trying to get, and we're using the Aquavolo VB Air paddles. And they're just a really high density foam. They're really, really buoyant. And, the mid-palm kind of design allows you to get on the stroke a lot sooner. And you can see kind of the difference between where she was with the left before and now, where she's really pulling herself forward a lot sooner. And then it was constantly kind of cueing her to remember to, engage the core. So here's kind of after we had worked on all this for a while, you can see kind of there's a difference. Hips are higher. The feet are starting to actually break the surface of the water. The stroke looks a lot more fluid. So we go back. I'll let it play again. And just connected. You can see how she's kind of using her core now a little bit more to connect the whole stroke together. So that was kind of what we did with India, and she, I think, flew back today, actually. So we hope to have her back in the water soon again, and wish her all the best for 70.3 Worlds. We'll be cheering for her.